Lisa Martinez wiped her hands on the old rag hanging from her belt. The grease came off slowly, leaving dark stains on the cloth. She had been working on the hyperdrive for 6 hours straight. Her back hurt, and her arms ached. But the job was finally done. She looked at the massive engine in front of her. The hyperdrive hummed quietly now, its blue lights glowing steady and bright. Yesterday, it had been making terrible noises and smoking. The ship's captain had said 3 other mechanics told him it was broken beyond repair. They wanted him to buy a new engine that would cost more than his ship was worth. Lisa smiled. She loved proving other people wrong. The problem had not been the main drive at all. A small part deep inside had been loose. It took her hours to find it and even longer to reach it. But now the Aurora's dream could fly between stars again. Martinez, Captain Jake Collins called from the doorway. He was a big man with gray hair and kind eyes. You really fixed it? Test it yourself, Lisa said. She pressed a button on the control panel. The hyperdrive's hum grew stronger for a moment, then returned to its quiet rhythm. All the warning lights stayed off. Captain Collins shook his head in amazement. The others said I needed a whole new engine. You saved me 50,000 credits. Just doing my job, Lisa said. But she felt proud. At 28, she had built a reputation as the best mechanic on Centauri Station. People came to her when no one else could help them. Even alien crews trusted her with their strange technology. Captain Collins paid her and left with his crew. Lisa was alone in her workshop again. The big room was full of tools, spare parts, and half-finished projects. It was not much to look at, but it was hers. She had saved for 3 years to rent this space and buy the equipment. She was cleaning her tools when something strange happened. The air in front of her began to shimmer like water. Tiny lights appeared and grew brighter. Lisa stepped back, reaching for the plasma cutter on her workbench. She had heard of holographic messages but had never received one. The lights formed into the shape of a woman. She was tall and beautiful with blue skin that seemed to glow. Strange crystal patterns decorated her temples and neck. Her eyes were large and golden, full of sadness. She wore robes that looked like they were made from starlight. Greetings. Lisa Martinez of Earth, the woman said. Her voice was musical but formal. I am Empress Zarathus of the Valdorian Empire. Lisa's mouth fell open. She had heard of the Valdorians. They ruled dozens of star systems and had technology that seemed like magic to humans. She had never expected their Empress to know her name. I require your assistance, Zarathus continued. In 7 days there will be a royal wedding on my homeworld. Prince Kethmar, who was once promised to me, will marry Princess Neuralin of the Crystalline Confederacy. I must attend this ceremony, but I cannot go alone. I need someone to accompany me as my guest. Lisa found her voice. Your Majesty, I think you have the wrong person. I'm just a mechanic. I don't know anything about royal weddings or politics. The Empress's sad smile made Lisa's heart ache. I know exactly who you are, Lisa Martinez. 6 months ago you repaired a Valdorian scout ship. The pilot was my brother, Commander Veltar. He was dying when you found his ship drifting in space near this station. Other mechanics said his ship could not be fixed. You proved them wrong. Lisa remembered that job. The alien ship had been unlike anything she had ever seen. Its technology was so advanced that she could barely understand how it worked. But the pilot had been unconscious and badly hurt. She could not let him die without trying to help. Your brother recovered? Lisa asked. Yes, thanks to you. He told me about the human who would not give up. He said you saw solutions where others saw only problems. That is why I need you with me at this wedding. Lisa did not understand. But why me? You must have advisors, friends, family members who would be better companions. Zarathus was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. This wedding will be difficult for me to witness. Kethmar and I were to be married before he chose duty over love. I need someone strong beside me, someone who understands that sometimes we must do impossible things. The hologram flickered slightly. I can pay you well for your time. 50,000 credits plus travel expenses and fine clothing suitable for the court. The journey will take 1 week total, 50,000 credits. Lisa tried not to show her excitement. That money would let her expand her workshop, buy better equipment, maybe even hire an assistant. She could stop worrying about rent and focus on the challenging repairs she loved most. I have never been to an alien world, Lisa said. I would not know how to behave at a royal wedding. You will be taught proper customs during the journey. Please, Lisa Martinez. I would not ask if I had any other choice. Lisa looked around her small workshop. She thought about her empty apartment upstairs, her simple life of work and sleep and work again. She thought about her dream of owning the biggest repair facility in human space. Most of all, she thought about the sadness in the Empress's golden eyes. All right, she said. I'll help you. Relief washed over Zarathus's face. Thank you. A ship will arrive for you tomorrow at sunrise. Bring only personal items. Everything else will be provided. The hologram began to fade. One more thing, Lisa Martinez. What you will see on my world may seem strange to human eyes, but remember that beneath all our differences we share the same hopes and fears. The lights disappeared, leaving Lisa alone in her workshop. She sat down heavily on her workbench. Had she really just agreed to accompany an alien empress to her ex-lover's wedding? It seemed impossible, but the promise of payment was real. And something about Zarathus's lonely sadness had touched her heart. Lisa spent the evening packing her few good clothes and wondering what she had gotten herself into. She had fixed broken ships across the galaxy, but she had never tried to fix a broken heart. Tomorrow, she would find out if some things were beyond even her ability to repair. Outside, her window, the stars seemed brighter than usual, as if they were calling her to an adventure she had never imagined possible. The Valdorian ship arrived exactly at sunrise. Lisa stood on the landing platform with her small bag, watching the most beautiful vessel she had ever seen descend from the sky. The Starweaver looked like it was made from silver liquid and crystal. It made no sound as it landed, and its hull seemed to shift colors in the morning light. A tall figure emerged from the ship. He had the same blue skin as the Empress, but his crystal markings were silver instead of gold. He wore a uniform that seemed to be cut from space itself, dark blue with tiny stars that twinkled. Lisa Martinez, he said, bowing slightly. I am Commander Veltar. We have met before, though you may not remember. Lisa stared at him. 6 months ago she had pulled an unconscious alien from a smoking wreck of a ship. Now he stood before her, healthy and strong. You were dying when I found you. Yes. Your refusal to accept defeat saved my life. Veltar's golden eyes were warm with gratitude. My sister has told me much about your skills. I am honored to transport you to our homeworld. The inside of the Starweaver took Lisa's breath away. The walls curved smoothly, covered with panels that glowed soft blue. Plants grew in impossible spirals along the ceiling, their roots somehow floating in the air. Through the transparent floor, she could see stars rushing past as they left the station behind. Your quarters, Veltar said, showing her to a room larger than her entire apartment. The bed seemed to be made of clouds, and the walls showed a peaceful view of an alien forest. Rest if you wish. The journey will take 3 days. Lisa had never traveled in such luxury. The food appeared when she was hungry, tasting better than anything she had ever eaten. The shower used some kind of energy that left her feeling perfectly clean without water. But the most amazing thing was the ship's computer, which began teaching her about Valdorian culture. She learned that Valdorians lived much longer than humans, often for hundreds of years. They valued honor above all else, but also prized beauty, art, and music. Their empire was ancient, built not through conquest, but through alliances with other worlds that chose to join them. The Empress is only 200 years old, the computer explained in its musical voice. For our people she is still young, but she carries great responsibility. The peace of dozens of worlds depends on her wisdom. Lisa tried to understand. And Prince Kethmar left her for political reasons? The marriage between Prince Kethmar and Princess Niralyn will unite our empire with the Crystalline Confederacy. It will prevent a war that could destroy millions of lives. The prince chose duty over his personal desires. That must have hurt the Empress terribly. The computer was quiet for a moment. Valdorians feel emotions more deeply than most species. We bond for life when we choose a mate. To lose that bond is devastating. On the second day, Lisa met with Veltar in the ship's observation deck. The space was surrounded by transparent walls that showed the incredible beauty of hyperspace. Colors flowed past like rivers of light. "Tell me about your sister," Lisa said. "What is she really like?" Veltar was quiet, choosing his words carefully. "Zarathis has always carried the weight of our people on her shoulders. Even as a child, she felt responsible for everyone's happiness. When she became Empress after our parents died, that burden grew heavier. She seemed so sad in her message. She hides her pain well, but I know her heart is broken. She loved Kethmar deeply. They were perfect together, complementing each other's strengths. But love is not always enough when duty calls." Lisa thought about her own simple life. She had never had to choose between love and the fate of nations. "Why does she really want me at this wedding? I'm just a human mechanic." Veltar studied her face. "You saved my life when others would have given up. You see possibilities where others see only failure. My sister needs someone like that beside her now. Someone who believes impossible things can be fixed." That night, Lisa had strange dreams. She heard someone crying in a language she did not understand. The voice was full of such sadness that it made her heart ache. She woke with tears on her cheeks, wondering why she felt so much pain for people she barely knew. On the third day, they arrived at the Valdorian homeworld. Lisa pressed her face to the observation window and gasped. The planet was like something from a fairy tale. Cities floated in the air, connected by bridges made of pure light. Waterfalls flowed upward through gravity fields, and gardens existed in pockets of space that seemed to bend reality. "Welcome to Valdoria Prime," Veltar said proudly. "The jewel of our empire." As they descended toward the capital city, Lisa saw spires that reached toward the clouds and buildings that seemed to grow like living things. The streets were filled with beings from dozens of different worlds, all living in harmony under Valdorian rule. The royal palace stood at the city's heart, a massive structure that looked like it was carved from a single enormous crystal. It reflected the light of the system's twin suns, casting rainbows across the floating platforms around it. "The wedding will be tomorrow," Veltar explained as they docked. "Tonight you will meet my sister properly. She is eager to thank you in person." Lisa felt nervous as servants led her through the palace halls. Everything was so beautiful and alien that she felt like a child lost in a dream. The walls were covered with art that moved and changed, telling stories she could not understand. Music seemed to flow from the air itself. Her rooms in the palace were even more luxurious than the ship. Clothing waited for her, made from fabrics that felt like silk but shimmered with their own light. A team of Valdorian attendants helped her dress and explained the customs she would need to follow. "Never touch the crystal formations on a Valdorian's face without permission," one explained. "They are very personal, like fingerprints, and always bow when introduced to nobility, but not too deeply unless they are of royal blood." Lisa's head spun with all the rules. She was used to working with her hands, solving practical problems. This world of politics and ceremony felt impossibly complex. That evening, Veltar came to escort her to dinner with the Empress. They walked through halls filled with other guests who had come for the wedding. Lisa saw beings she could not even identify, creatures of crystal and energy in forms that defied imagination. "Remember," Veltar whispered as they approached the royal dining hall, "my sister may seem different here. She must play the role of Empress in front of others. But her need for your friendship is real." The great doors opened, and Lisa entered, a room that took her breath away. The ceiling showed the night sky of dozens of worlds, stars twinkling like diamonds. At the center of a long table sat Empress Zarathis, even more beautiful in person than in her holographic message. But as their eyes met across the room, Lisa saw the same sadness she had noticed before. Behind all the royal splendor, The Empress was still a woman facing the most painful day of her life. Tomorrow she would watch the man she loved marry someone else. Lisa squared her shoulders and walked forward. She might be just a human mechanic, but she had never walked away from someone who needed help. Tomorrow would test them both, but tonight at least the Empress would not be alone. Lisa woke before dawn on the wedding day. She had barely slept, her mind full of worry about the ceremony ahead. Through her window, she could see hundreds of ships arriving from across the galaxy. Representatives from every major world were coming to witness this union that would reshape the balance of power between empires. Servants came early to help her prepare. They brought her a gown that seemed to be woven from captured starlight, silver and blue fabric that moved like water. The dress fit perfectly, as if it had been made just for her. The Empress chose this herself, one servant explained. She said you must look like the honored guest you are. When Lisa looked in the mirror, she hardly recognized herself. The elegant dress and careful styling made her look like she belonged in a palace instead of a repair shop, but her hands still bore small scars from years of mechanical work, reminders of who she really was. Veltar arrived to escort her to the ceremony. He wore formal robes of deep purple, and his crystal markings gleamed like silver flames. "You look magnificent," he said kindly. "My sister will be pleased." They walked through the palace corridors, joining streams of guests heading toward the Temple of Eternal Bonds. Lisa had never seen so many different species in one place. There were beings of pure energy walking beside creatures that looked like living gems. Some flew on wings of light, while others moved on multiple legs that clicked against the crystal floors. "Do not be nervous," Veltar whispered. "Just follow my lead and remember that you belong here as much as anyone." The Temple of Eternal Bonds was the most amazing building Lisa had ever seen. It was carved from a single enormous crystal that reached toward the sky like a mountain of pure light. As they approached, the crystal began to glow brighter, responding to the emotions of the gathering crowd. Inside, thousands of seats were arranged in perfect circles around a central platform. The walls rose so high that the ceiling seemed to touch the stars. Light flowed through the crystal in patterns that matched the rhythm of heartbeats, creating a sense of deep peace and connection. Lisa found her seat in the front row, reserved for the most honored guests. To her left sat ambassadors from the Crystalline Confederacy. To her right, dignitaries from worlds she had never heard of whispered in languages that sounded like music. Then Empress Zarathis entered, and the entire temple fell silent. She moved like flowing water, her robes trailing behind her in waves of gold and white. Her crystal markings blazed with inner light, and her golden eyes were calm and dignified. She showed no sign of the pain Lisa knew she must be feeling. The Empress took her place on a throne carved from blue crystal. Lisa sat just behind her, close enough to offer silent support. When their eyes met briefly, Zarathis gave her the smallest smile of gratitude. Music began to play, though Lisa could not see any instruments. The sound seemed to come from the crystal itself, harmonies that made her heart soar and brought tears to her eyes. She had never heard anything so beautiful. Princess Nira Lin entered first, accompanied by her family from the Crystalline Confederacy. She was lovely in her own way, with skin that looked like polished white stone and hair that flowed like liquid silver. Her dress was made from actual crystals that chimed softly as she moved. But when Prince Kethmar appeared, Lisa understood why the Empress still loved him. He was tall and strong, with the same blue skin as all Valdorians but crystal markings of deep red that spoke of royal blood. His eyes were kind, and his face showed the weight of the difficult choice he had made. As he walked toward the altar, his gaze found Zarathis. For just a moment his composure cracked, and Lisa saw the love and regret in his expression. The Empress met his look with perfect dignity, though Lisa noticed her hands trembling slightly in her lap. The wedding ceremony was unlike anything Lisa had ever imagined. The officiant was an ancient Valdorian whose crystal markings covered his entire body in patterns of incredible complexity. He spoke in the old language, his words making the temple itself ring like a bell. In the sight of all worlds and all peoples, he began, we gather to witness the joining of two hearts, two houses, and two empires. Let the crystals sing of their bond. The temple responded, its walls glowing brighter as psychic energy filled the air. Lisa could feel the emotions of everyone present, joy, hope, and underneath it all, the deep sadness of the woman sitting in front of her. Prince Kethamar and Princess Niralyn stood together on the central platform. They spoke their vows in voices that carried throughout the crystal chamber. They promised to love and honor each other, to put their people's welfare above their own desires, and to build a future of peace between their worlds. When they touched hands, the temple blazed with light so bright that Lisa had to close her eyes. The crystal was responding to their genuine commitment to each other and to their duty. Whatever else might be true, their marriage was real and binding in every way that mattered. Lisa glanced at the Empress during this moment of brilliance. Zarathus sat perfectly still, her face serene, but a single tear traced down her blue cheek. Lisa's heart broke for her. The ceremony continued with rituals Lisa did not understand. The couple shared a drink that seemed to contain liquid starlight. They exchanged jewelry that bonded with their crystal markings. Finally, they stood before the altar while beams of pure energy surrounded them, marking them as joined for life. By the power of the eternal crystal, the officiant declared, I pronounce you husband and wife, united in love, duty, and service to all peoples. May your bond bring peace to the galaxy. The crowd erupted in celebration. Beings of every species cheered and sang in their native languages. Light shows filled the air as various technologies created displays of joy. The temple itself seemed to dance with happiness. But Lisa only watched the Empress, who applauded gracefully, while her heart shattered in silence. The reception was held in the palace's grand ballroom, a space so large that Lisa could barely see the far walls. Tables floated at different levels, connected by stairs made of solid light. The food appeared to be created by the guests' desires, manifesting as they thought about what they wanted to eat. Lisa stayed close to Zarathus as they moved through the crowd. The Empress played her role perfectly, congratulating the couple, speaking diplomatically with foreign ambassadors, and showing no sign of personal pain. She is remarkable, Lisa heard one guest say to another. Such dignity in the face of heartbreak. As the evening progressed, Lisa watched the newlyweds dance to music that seemed to flow from their very souls. They looked happy together, genuinely suited for each other in a way that would make their political marriage work. This only made the situation more tragic for the Empress. Late in the evening, something unexpected happened. Prince Kethamar approached their table, his new wife beside him. Lisa tensed, unsure what to expect. Empress Zarathus, he said formally, bowing deeply. Princess Niralyn and I wanted to thank you personally for your blessing on our union. You have it gladly, the Empress replied, her voice steady. May your marriage bring the peace our peoples need. Kethamar hesitated, then stepped closer. Might I speak with you privately? There are things that must be said. Zarathus nodded gracefully. Of course. They moved to a quiet alcove where the music was softer. Princess Niralyn came with them, her crystal face kind but serious. Lisa followed, unsure whether she should stay or give them privacy. Please remain, Zarathus said quietly. You are my trusted companion. Kethamar looked directly at his former love. I need you to know that my feelings for you have not changed. What we had was real and beautiful, but the fate of billions rested on this alliance. I could not choose personal happiness over so many lives. I know, Zarathus replied simply. I would have made the same choice in your place. That is why I loved you. Princess Niralyn spoke for the first time. I also want you to know, Empress, that I do not take Kethamar's sacrifice lightly. I will do everything in my power to be worthy of what you have both given up for peace. The three rulers stood together in the soft light, bound by duty and loss and hope for the future. Lisa felt like she was witnessing something sacred, the moment when personal pain transformed into service for something greater. As they returned to the celebration, Lisa finally understood why she had been brought here. The Empress had needed someone to witness her strength, to see her bear this impossible burden with grace. Tomorrow, when the guests were gone and the political necessity was over, Zarathis would still have to live with her broken heart. But tonight, she had shown the galaxy what true leadership looked like, and Lisa had been there to see it all. The palace was quiet after the wedding celebration ended. Most guests had returned to their ships or been given rooms for the night. Lisa walked through empty corridors that still glowed with soft light, her formal gown rustling against the crystal floors. She had expected to return to her quarters alone, but a servant approached her near the royal wing. "The Empress requests your presence in her private chambers," the young Valdorian said, "if you are not too tired." Lisa's heart went out to Zarathis. After hours of maintaining perfect composure, the Empress probably needed someone to talk to. Of course, lead the way. The servant guided her through passages Lisa had not seen before. These halls were simpler than the public areas, decorated with personal touches that revealed the woman behind the royal title. There were paintings of landscapes from different worlds, sculptures that seemed to dance in the light, and flowers that hummed with gentle music. They stopped at a door marked with crystal patterns more intricate than any Lisa had seen. The servant bowed and withdrew, leaving Lisa to knock softly. "Enter, my friend," came Zarathis's voice from within. Lisa stepped into the most beautiful room she had ever seen. The walls were transparent, showing gardens that existed in pocket dimensions. Streams of water flowed through the air, defying gravity to create fountains of impossible beauty. But what caught her attention was the Empress herself. Zarathis had changed from her formal robes into simple clothing. Her crystal markings still glowed softly, but now they seemed dimmer, as if her emotions were draining their light. She sat in a chair that molded itself to her body, looking smaller and more vulnerable than she had all day. "Thank you for coming," the Empress said. "Please sit with me. There is much I need to tell you." Lisa settled into a chair beside her. "You were incredible today. I don't know how you stayed so strong through everything." "Practice," Zarathis said with a sad smile. "A ruler must always appear in control even when her world is falling apart. But that is not what I wanted to discuss with you." The Empress stood and walked to a wall that shimmered like water. She touched it with one finger, and images began to appear in the crystal surface. "I owe you an explanation. Why did I really bring you here? Why you specifically?" Lisa watched as scenes played out in the wall. She saw herself working in her shop, repairing the Valdorian scout ship, saving Veltar's life. But there were other images too, ones that made no sense. 6 months ago, when my brother returned with stories of the human mechanic who would not give up, something stirred in my heart, Zarathis continued. He described your determination, your refusal to accept that anything was truly broken. It reminded me of someone I lost long ago. The images in the wall shifted, showing scenes from decades past. Lisa saw a young Valdorian girl with the same golden eyes as the Empress, but crystal markings of brilliant silver instead of gold. The girl was working on some kind of machine, her face lit with concentration and joy. "My younger sister, Kirathis," the Empress said softly. "She died 50 years ago in a plague that swept through our outer colonies. She was the most brilliant engineer our people had ever produced, but more than that, she had a spirit that could not be broken. No matter how impossible a problem seemed, she believed it could be solved." Lisa stared at the images. The resemblance was not physical. Kirathis was clearly Valdorian, but something in her expression, her determined posture, reminded Lisa of herself. "When Veltar described you, I felt as though Kira had returned to me somehow. Not literally, of course, but in spirit. I needed to see for myself if his description was accurate." More images flowed across the wall. Lisa saw herself from angles she had never noticed, recorded somehow during her work on the scout ship. She watched herself refuse to give up on the alien technology, working for hours to find solutions that others had missed. "It was uncanny," Zarathis whispered. "Your approach, your persistence, even the way you moved while working. It was as if I was watching my sister again." Lisa felt a mix of emotions, sympathy for the Empress's loss, but also confusion about her role in this story. So you brought me here because I remind you of her? Not exactly. Zarathis touched the wall again and the images changed. Now Lisa saw the royal court, political meetings, the burden of ruling an empire. After Kira died, I threw myself into my duties. I had no time for grief, no space for personal loss. When I became Empress, the weight of responsibility grew even heavier, and when Kethmar left me for duty, I felt completely alone. The Empress turned to face Lisa directly. But seeing you work, hearing Veltar's report, something awakened in me that I thought was dead. Hope, perhaps. The possibility that problems could be solved, that broken things could be repaired. I needed that hope beside me today. Lisa was beginning to understand, but she sensed there was more to the story. What else haven't you told me? Zarathis was quiet for a long moment. Then she walked to another part of the room, where a small, crystal container sat on a shelf. She opened it carefully and a hologram emerged. Not a message this time, but a memory. The scene showed two young Valdorian girls playing together in a garden. One had golden crystal markings, the other silver. They were building something together, their heads bent close as they worked. Kira and I were more than sisters, the Empress said, her voice breaking slightly. We were best friends, partners in everything. She was going to be my chief engineer when I became ruler. We had so many plans, so many dreams of what we would build together. The memory shifted, showing the sisters as they grew older. The golden-marked girl became more serious, learning statecraft and diplomacy. The silver-marked one focused on technology and innovation, but they remained close, supporting each other through every challenge. When the plague came, Kira was working on a cure. She pushed herself too hard, exposed herself to the disease while trying to save others. She died believing she had failed, that she could not solve the one problem that mattered most. Lisa watched the final memory, a young Empress Zarathis, standing beside a crystal tomb, her face frozen in grief. I promised at her funeral that I would never again allow myself to become attached to anyone. It hurt too much to lose someone I loved. For 50 years I kept that promise. The hologram faded, leaving them in the gentle glow of the room's ambient light. Zarathis sat down heavily, looking older than Lisa had ever seen her. But loneliness is its own kind of death, the Empress continued. When Kethamar came into my life, I thought perhaps I could risk loving again. When he left, it confirmed what I already believed, that caring for others only leads to pain. Lisa felt tears building in her own eyes. She was beginning to understand the true depth of the Empress's isolation. So why bring me here? Why risk opening old wounds? Because, Zarathis said, looking directly at her, watching you work reminded me that my sister's spirit lives on. In people like you who refuse to give up. I needed to see if that spirit could exist in friendship too, not just in the memory of someone lost. The Empress stood up suddenly, pacing to the transparent wall that showed her floating gardens. I brought you here selfishly, Lisa Martinez. I needed to prove to myself that connection was still possible, that I could care about someone without losing them to duty or death or distance. Lisa wiped away tears she had not realized were falling. I'm honored that you trusted me with this story, but you didn't bring me here just to witness your pain, did you? Zarathis turned back to her, hope and fear warring in her golden eyes. I brought you here because I dared to believe that perhaps we could be friends. Real friends, the way Kira and I were friends. Two women who understand what it means to fix broken things, to never give up on problems that seem impossible. The room was quiet, except for the soft sound of water flowing through the air. Lisa looked at this powerful alien ruler, seeing not an empress but a woman who had carried grief and loneliness for 50 years. A woman who had watched the man she loved marry someone else and done it with perfect grace. A woman who still dared to hope that friendship could heal old wounds. I would be honored to be your friend, Lisa said simply. But I have to ask, what happens when I go back to my workshop on Centauri Station? How do we maintain a friendship across the galaxy? Zarathus smiled for the first time since the wedding ceremony. Actually, I was hoping you might consider staying. There is much that human ingenuity could bring to our empire, and I find myself in great need of a chief engineer I can trust completely. Lisa's heart stopped. Stay here? Leave her simple life? Behind for adventure among the stars? It seemed impossible, but then again, she had always specialized in impossible things. Outside the transparent walls, the gardens glowed with gentle light, promising a future neither woman had dared to imagine. Just hours before, Lisa stared at the Empress in shock. Stay on Valdoria Prime? Become chief engineer to an alien empire? The offer was beyond anything she had ever imagined for her life. I don't know what to say, Lisa stammered. This is incredible, but I need time to think. My whole life is back on Centauri Station. Zarathus nodded, though disappointment flickered across her face. Of course, I should not have presumed. You have your own dreams, your own plans. It's not that simple, Lisa said quickly. What life do I really have there? A small workshop barely making enough to survive, working alone most of the time? I've been so focused on just getting by that I never thought about what I actually wanted. She stood up and walked to the transparent wall, looking out at the impossible gardens. But this is like asking me to live in a fairy tale. How do I know I would fit in here? I'm just a human mechanic. I don't understand your politics or your technology. You understood my brother's ship well enough to save his life, Zarathus pointed out gently. You see solutions where others see only problems. That is exactly what we need. Lisa turned back to face her. Why are you really offering this? Is it because you're lonely? Because I remind you of your sister? That's not a good foundation for such a big decision. The question hung in the air between them. Zarathus was quiet for a long moment, considering her words carefully. At first, yes, she admitted. I brought you here because of Kira, because you stirred memories I had buried. But watching you today, seeing how you supported me without judgment, how you adapted to our customs while remaining yourself, I realized something important. The Empress moved closer, her golden eyes intense. I am not offering you this position because you remind me of someone else. I am offering it because of who you are, Lisa Martinez. Your strength, your loyalty, your ability to see beyond surface differences to find common ground. Lisa felt her resistance wavering. But I don't know anything about running an empire. Neither did I when I became Empress, Zarathus said with a small smile. Leadership is learned through practice, and you would not be alone. Veltar would help you understand our technology. I would guide you through the politics. Most importantly, you would be working on problems that matter, projects that could improve life for billions of people. What kind of projects? Zarathus gestured to the wall, and new images appeared. Lisa saw star charts, planetary systems, massive construction projects spanning multiple worlds. The Empire is growing too fast for our current infrastructure. We need new approaches to faster-than-light travel, better ways to communicate across, vast distances, solutions to environmental problems on dozens of worlds. The images shifted to show collaborative efforts between different species, sharing technology and knowledge. Most of our allied races bring their own expertise, but humans have something unique. The ability to see past the way things have always been done. Your species excels at creative problem-solving. Lisa felt excitement building despite her fears. These were the kinds of challenges she had always dreamed of tackling. You really think I could make a difference? I know you could, Zarathus said firmly. But more than that, I hope we could make a difference together. As friends, as partners in building something better. Lisa was quiet for several minutes, weighing the decision. Finally, she spoke. Can I see more of your world first? Meet some of your engineers? Understand what I would really be getting into? Of course. Stay for another week as my guest. Learn about us and let us learn about you. Then decide. Over the following days, Lisa explored the Valdorian capital with wonder and growing confidence. She visited research facilities where scientists from dozens of species worked together on impossible problems. She met engineers who showed her technology that seemed like magic, but explained it in ways that made perfect sense. Most importantly, she spent time with Zarathis away from the formal court. They worked together in the palace workshops, combining Lisa's practical knowledge with Valdorian theoretical science. They walked through the floating gardens, talking about everything from childhood memories to dreams for the future. Lisa discovered that beneath all her royal duties, Zarathis was funny, curious, and surprisingly down-to-earth. The Empress, in turn, was amazed by Lisa's ability to explain complex ideas in simple terms and her talent for finding the heart of any problem. On their fourth day together, they were working on a broken environmental processor that had been giving the palace engineers trouble for months. Lisa had her hands deep in its crystal matrix, feeling for the source of the malfunction. "There," she said finally. "The resonance frequency is wrong. Someone installed this component backwards." Within minutes, she had the processor humming smoothly. Zarathis shook her head in amazement. "Our best technicians have been working on that for weeks." "Sometimes an outside perspective helps," Lisa said, wiping crystal dust from her hands. "Fresh eyes see things differently. Is that why you are considering staying, for the technical challenges?" Lisa looked at her new friend, seeing past the Empress to the woman who had trusted her with painful memories and impossible hopes. "No. I'm considering it because of you. Because somehow, in just a few days, you've become more important to me than anything I left behind." Zarathis's crystal markings blazed brighter with emotion. "You mean that? I've spent my whole life working alone, solving other people's problems and then sending them away," Lisa said. "But working with you, building something together, it feels like what I've been missing all along." Tears flowed down both their faces as they embraced, two women from different worlds who had found in each other the friendship they had each thought impossible. 6 months later, Lisa stood in her new workshop in the palace, putting the finishing touches on her latest project. It was a small thing compared to the massive infrastructure improvements she had been overseeing, but it meant everything to Zarathis. The music box had belonged to Kirathis, damaged beyond repair when the plague ship she died on had been destroyed. Zarathis had kept the broken pieces for 50 years, unable to fix them but unwilling to throw them away. Lisa had spent weeks studying the delicate crystal mechanics, learning how memory storage worked in Valdorian technology. It had been the most challenging repair of her career, requiring her to basically rebuild the entire mechanism from fragments. Now she held her breath as she activated the final resonance circuit. The music box shimmered to life, its crystal petals opening like a flower. Soft music began to play, a lullaby that Kirathis had recorded for her sister decades ago. Zarathis entered the workshop at that moment, drawn by the familiar melody. When she saw what Lisa had accomplished, she stopped dead in her tracks. "You fixed it," she whispered, her voice full of wonder and joy. "After all these years, you actually fixed it." "Some things aren't really broken," Lisa said softly. "They're just waiting for the right person to understand how they work." They listened to Kirathis's voice singing the old song, her love and laughter preserved forever in crystal and light. When the music ended, both women were crying, but these were tears of healing rather than loss. "Thank you," Zarathis said, holding the music box like it was made of precious dreams. "For this, for everything, for showing me that some things can be repaired, even after decades of believing they were lost forever." Lisa smiled, looking around her workshop filled with projects from across the galaxy. Outside the windows, the floating city sparkled in the light of twin suns. Somewhere in the palace, Veltar was probably working on plans for their next engineering challenge. In the royal courts, beings from 100 worlds continued building a future of cooperation and peace. She had traveled to an alien world expecting to attend a wedding and earn enough money to expand her small business. Instead, she had found a best friend, a purpose larger than herself, and the kind of adventure she had never dared to dream possible. "You know what the best part is?" Lisa said to Zarathis. "What?" "This is just the beginning. We have a whole galaxy of broken things to fix together." The Empress laughed, a sound like crystal bells ringing in harmony. "Then we had better get started. After all, Impossible things don't repair themselves. Hand in hand, they walked toward their next adventure. Two friends who had discovered that sometimes the most important repairs happen not to machines, but to hearts that had forgotten how to hope. In the background, Kirithus's music box played. On. It sung a bridge between past and future, loss and love, the dreams that break and the friendships that heal them all.